saving humanity from the doom that's about to strike. A trio caught stealing a Mayan relic was revealed as Seonghwa, a new religious organization. The security arrested the trio red-handed. The trio were attempting to steal a Mayan relic from the Mayan civilization exhibition at the National Museum of Korea. Seoul Yongsan Police Station is investigating suspects A, B, and C for the crime attempt of special larceny. The trio are suspected of stealing the exhibited relic from the time, destiny, and prophecy of the Maya civilization at 10:05 a.m. on the 10th. A reporter behind the case interviewed Suspect A's crime motive. Suspect A stated that I had to steal the relic to save humanity before they face the world's end. It was later found that the trio are believers of the religion Seonghwa. It is speculated that the trio committed the crime under the influence of Henry Jo, the religious leader. Seonghwa is a new religion and was established in 1999 by a scientist named Henry Jo. This religion believes that humans are a collection of energy, and human concerns from an uncertain future can be resolved by science. Henry Jo frequently mentioned the Mayan relic, shaped in an hourglass, in official statements. Henry Jo also mentioned that the energy condensed inside of it will be the key to saving humanity. The Mayan relic Henry Jo mentioned is an hourglass artifact that imitates the moon's movement. There are many speculations for the exact purpose of the artifact among experts. However, one clear established theory is that the relic, crafted through an uncommon metallurgy technique, was used for ceremonial purposes. A week has passed since we came back here without Yeosang. We stayed at this place, where android guardians do not exist, before we left to that other dimension. That street and people all still look the same as always, but the only thing that changed is the time zone. Simply put, we have returned to the past. This was the moment before we gathered at our ATEEZ. Not too long before Yuno's older brother's car accident. We assumed that the time zone was twisted when the chromer broke, and Yuno was thrilled, probably because his brother was brought back to life from the tragic accident. I can understand Yuno, but deep down in my heart I felt bitter against him, whether we are in the past or present. One thing was clear, we may be alive, but Yeosang isn't here with us. Since the chromer was broken, there's no way for us to be back there. We were hopelessly wasting time. Then Seonghwa rushed and shouted, "This is the chromer, right?" He showed an article featuring the attempted robbery of the Mayan relic exhibited at the National Museum of Korea. The hourglass that captures the lunar movement. It was the chromer. If we think back to the broken chromer I got in my dream was from the man with the black fedora. It means that chromer was existing in their dimension. It would be possible that there is another chromer in this dimension. Let's find the chromer to find Yeosang and put it back to the original place. Hong Jun yelled. However, other members were against Hong Jun's idea, saying it is too dangerous and illegal. Whether it is legal or illegal, what about Yeosang? You are telling me that you want us to leave him there. If it were me in the past, who was stuck up and scared to break the rules, I would have reacted the same as the other members when Hong Jun suggested his idea. Maybe this made me even madder. But now, I'm not the person who I used to be. Saving Yeosang is my top priority. We decided not to be stuck in the past. When we left to another dimension, all we made up our mind, didn't we? We do know we are not in the present, so we must go back to make everything right. After giving some thought, one by one, the members started to agree with stealing the chromer. As everyone was coming together, Yuno quietly said, "I want to stay here. I can't leave my brother." As much as I believed in Yuno, his statement came as a shock. I walked around our ATEEZ to pull myself together. Mingi quietly came out and walked with me. He probably felt the same. I respect Yuno's decision. I looked at Mingi, perplexed. He carefully went on. When I thought that I may lose my grandmother, everything felt meaningless, even my dreams and our members. I believe it will be even worse for Yuno. He already lost his brother once. He'd never want to let him go. At that moment, I remembered when I punched Mingi, when Mingi told us he wanted to quit, saying that our dreams are meaningless. I felt betrayed and swung my fist. Obviously, my heart was instantly flooded with regret. It's too late to say this now, but I didn't want to give up at all. He said that the only reason he'd made up his mind to give up was his grandmother. his only family member who had collapsed on that day. The fact that he is having a great time with our members while his grandmother is suffering haunted him. I was able to finally understand Mingi's perspective after he shared his story. I knew that I could never fully understand what Yunho has gone through, but I assumed that he had a hard time as well. He should be conflicted between finding his brother and saving Yeosang. I am sure he is suffering from it. After having a long discussion, we chose to respect Yunho's choice. No one can force to decide. Everyone should be in front of the museum by now. Why am I so nervous? I'm sure everything is going as we planned. My brother scolded me for checking my phone every minute, full of embarrassment. I put down my phone. I started to massage his left leg, telling him everything was fine. You are so weird. You've changed so much. Well, I like it a lot better than when you were wandering around on your motorcycle. But I still can't get used to this sudden change in the last 2 weeks. I understand what he said. Well, I came back from the future. I think God gave you perfect hands at the cost of giving legs that need a bit of help. I said. I imitated my brother playing the guitar as he gave me a curious look. He laughed out loud and asked me to massage his left leg harder. Since birth, he had a dysfunctional right leg, so my brother's left leg would always be swollen, doing as it is doing all of the leg work. Well, if my legs were good, I would never imagine myself sitting here to play the instrument. Maybe some deficiencies are a blessing in disguise. Giving insight, right? He finished talking and turned on the TV in the corner of the room, and headline news came out. It was about Henry Jo, the leader of Seonghwa, breaking into the National Museum of Korea to steal Mayan relics with hundreds of Seonghwa's believers, some boys who were trying to stop them from stealing the relic. And now they are held as hostages. I jumped up. The hostages were my members. I took out my motorcycle key from the cabinet and yelled at my brother, "Stay inside. You must stay inside no matter what." Seonghwa was a religious group. But why? Why is Henry Jo pointing his knife at my throat? How did this happen? 4 p.m. We met up in front of the museum and planned to enter the museum in 2 groups of 3. As closing time approached, the security guards were loosening up. One group was responsible for catching the guards' attention while the other group steals the chromer. We planned to go get Yeosang as soon as we stole the chromer. However, even before entering the museum, our plan fell apart. Among the crowd of people in red coming out of the exhibition hall, a man in a black techwear outfit was holding the chromer. He had a long white beard, a black mole on his right cheek, and large goggles. It was Henry Jo, the leader of Seonghwa. We had to get the chromer back from him. If we miss this opportunity, there may be no way back. Right then, some high school girls with red blankets on their shoulders passed by me. Without giving any thought, I took their blanket and put it over my head, and then joined the group of Seonghwa believers, leaving the faces of embarrassed high school girls behind. The members also joined the group covered with blankets. We gradually approached Henry Jo. As we reached close enough to snatch the chromer, bang! The police shot a blank fire shot and blocked Henry Jo and the Seonghwa believers. At that moment I reached towards the chromer, but Henry Jo pointed a blade at my throat even more quickly. He whispered in my ear, holding back his laughter, "I just needed a hostage, so thank you for coming." Think Hongjung. Think. My head blacked out. My head stopped because of this fear I've never felt before. Bang! The police shot another blank fire shot. As the final warning, the police yelled that as the hostages were not released, they would fire shots immediately. As the believers started to murmur, Henry Jo yelled not to be swayed. At the moment, a group of bikers ran toward the museum with a loud exhaust sound. 6 bikes began to circle the crown of Seonghwa. The believers started to get nervous about the rider's unknown intention. Henry Jo shouted, but the motorcycles were too loud to hear anything. Then, a familiar sticker caught my eyes. ATEEZ. It was Yunho. The other riders must be Yunho's friends. I intuitively knew Yunho's plan. As Henry Jo lost control over his believers, he turned towards the crowd. Wooyoung. I wasn't sure if Wooyoung heard me, or he intuitively knew it was Yunho. But Wooyoung snatched the chromer and started to run. As soon as we ran out of the group of believers, Yunho and the riders seated us on their motorcycles and ramped up. We could see Henry Jo running away alone while the police were trying to control the believers. I knew you'd come back, I shouted with excitement behind Yunho, as I was shouting with joy. I heard Hyunjun saying, "There's a car behind you." The 6 motorcycles suddenly turned their directions, and everyone fell to the ground. The car, coming to crush us, was overpowered by its own momentum and flipped into the pedestrian walk, hitting the pedestrians. Yunho's eyes trembled as he saw the pedestrians lying on the ground. "Brother," Yunho screamed as he ran to the pedestrian. It was Yunho's brother on the ground. He seemed like he was heading towards the museum. After seeing Yunho's motorcycle on the news, Yunho's brother slowly opened his eyes and asked, "Is it 5:07 right now?" I checked my phone and it was 5:07 p.m. "Your diary said that I got hit by a car at 5:07 p.m. Yunho looked at his brother. Startled, his brother went on saying, "Sorry, I read your journal on the desk. I knew something was going on, but you never told me what you're going through." He painfully continued breathing. It didn't make any sense, so I thought it was a lie. I guess it wasn't. "We need to go to the hospital right now." Yunho wiped his tears and tried to pull his brother, but his brother grabbed his arm. Yunho held onto his brother's hand as if he'd never let his brother go. "There's something I need to tell you. It wasn't your fault that I got injured back then. And even now, it wasn't your fault. So leave me in the past and move on with your own life." Yunho was weeping. His brother slowly patted Yunho's head. "I love you, my brother. You know what I always say, right? You're doing your best just by going through the day. I was happy enough for the last 2 weeks. I appreciate it." Then, Yunho's brother passed out. Yunho put his head down on his brother's chest and wailed. Henry Joe stumbled out of the driver's seat of the overturned car. Blood was running down slowly on Henry Joe's face because of his head injury. Henry Joe stared at the chromer in Wooyoung's hand. He then began to run towards Wooyoung with a knife. Yunho quickly threw his fist at Henry Joe and yelled, "Turn the chromer." Henry Joe snatched the knife that he dropped when he fell down. "Hurry!" Right at the moment when Henry Joe was raging towards us, Wooyoung turned the chromer. How long have I been in this glass room? It felt like an eternity being in this tube without any light. I found the whole light of resistances, who revolted against the government, standing in front of my glass room with their biological energy stolen. Android guardians covered them with black fabric. Maybe they did not want to see the undead resistances. The worst part was that the Grimes siblings were among the covered resistances. The Grimes siblings and Left Eye ran into the art museum after seeing the light that the chromer had emitted when it shattered. Left Eye was able to escape the bunker, but he lost his right arm. The Grimes siblings got caught and lost their biological energy. I don't know how much time has passed. The pain was so great that I desired to lose my emotions instead. I wished that the Guardians would just kill me, but my train of thoughts went that far. I heard a trumpet sound somewhere. The Guardians, surveilling me, busted out. I heard beating and moaning outside. I started beating at the glass tube without even knowing. "Somebody please get me out of here. Please." The light that I hadn't seen for age slid in when the door opened. Men in black fedoras were fighting with android guardians behind the open door. "Hey, Yeosang." I heard a warm voice calling my name. A guy came near my glass room and pulled down his black mask. Tears of relief burst out my eyes. It was Seonghwa. The underground hideout of the resistance organization Black Pirate. A signal came from an old small machine. A one-armed man rushed in and sat down in front of the old machine. The one-armed man held up a pen to write down the codes. It was Left Eye. After suffering from another loss, he looked rather fragile. Left Eye interpreted the Morse code he wrote down. The light of hope spread on his face gradually. Left Eye turned to the people and shouted, "They're back. They came back." The cheers of Black Pirate echoed in the underground hideout. The messy handwriting of Left Eye on the paper reads, "Say my name. ATEEZ."